Hello, it is Creature, and as per my previous email, Oonga Boonga is how I play games, but what if there was a game that just encapsulated the feeling of being an absolute monster? A game that allows you to feel what it's like to rail a line of coke and slaughter everything that has diverged from the blessed human form as stated by the Emperor. A sci-fi setting with a rich story going on over a decade of lore build-up where regardless of when you start playing, you can always get caught up, and after a decade is still going strong. Oh, I'm not talking about Destiny. That shit's trash, and Bungie has taken it out back and put it down like the dog it was. However, I will talk about the game that predates and has outlasted Destiny, and does what Destiny does, but much better. Warframe is a game that I've played on and off for over a decade. I played it as a child, and now I continue to play it as a man-child, as me and a lot of other people have independently, yet simultaneously, gotten back into this game for some reason. The game is awesome and looks amazing, feels great, and has continued to be developed for over a decade. Okay, let's get into this. It ain't too complicated. Let's see what's changed and what's new. So this is going to be spoilers for pretty much all of the lore in a very poorly summarized way, so skip to here if you care. Alright, in short, we are so far into the future that fuck it, it's pretty much all space magic. We can call this Warframe 40 million. To understand this game's plot, I must first familiarize you with Plato's Republic. In short, Plato saw a utopia that was, to put it in the most simple terms, ran by three main castes of people: gold, silver, and bronze. Gold would be for the rulers and philosophers, whom sought glory through great works and philosophizing. Then there's the silver. They would be the warriors who are seeking glory via duty and martial things. And finally, we have bronze, where most of you would reside. Those of us whom only seek out to fulfill their base pleasures, effectively gooners and consumers, only focused on making themselves feel good. No, not like that, but I mean, yeah, kinda like that. As denoted by the medals, the golds are on top and the bronze are effectively slaves, who will toil while the silvers keep order and the golds got up to whatever the fuck it is the elites are doing. Yes, I know that most of this is not correct, but I am paraphrasing, summarizing, condensing, and misremembering. Well, the Orcan saw that and thought that that shit was just a swell idea, so they made their entire empire around that society and bioengineered two slave races that would act as the silver and bronze castes, Grineer and Corpus, respectively. And then after that, the Orcan sent out a whole bunch of artificial intelligences to colonize other systems. That went about as well as you can imagine. Facing the full might of Cyberstan, the Orcan created a bioweapon called the Infestation to fight the sentient AI. And then that, unsurprisingly, backfired. Think of the Flood, but a hell of a lot less intelligent and a lot more spiteful. Also around this time, a group of colonists got trapped inside of the warp, and all the adults went insane, but the children became Alpha Plus level psychers. However, the Orcan did not trust these kids called Tenno. That's you. But because these kids could pilot warframes, which are effectively highly skilled warriors turned into metal beings controlled by eldritch abominations that have taken the form of an emo JRPG protagonist. Again, that's you. However, they were just helpful enough to take out the sentient. Alright, fuck it. We're gonna be here for a while, so let's just fast forward. Space Mom said fuck the Empire, took the kids and the moon, and then just blinked out of existence for a couple thousand years. Or 10,000 years. I don't know. Similarly to Age of Sigmar lore, this shit has no fucking dates, and for somebody who likes the brain rot lore and likes to know exactly when everything happened, this is extremely annoying. The Orcan Empire fell sometime in between then and now, but a pretty long time before now. Whatever. An old man wakes you up because an old space hag really wants to make a coat out of your child self's skin. However, he also wants to turn you into his personal life-sized Funko Pop. You'll then spend the next few hundred hours committing so much wanton destruction and slaughter that even Scarbrand would tell you to calm the fuck down. The game looks absolutely amazing, and while you show Raiden what the fuck is up, oh, innocent soldiers are trying to feed their family, I'll take 20. The game honestly looks great, with an amazing amazing variety of areas, all looking unique. I mean shit, the game even has its own built-in roguelike version, but I'll talk about that later. There are missions that are able to seamlessly go from pitched space battles, where you can be on board of a capital ship using turrets, and then immediately go into ground and ship assaults like it's absolutely nothing. All the maps look absolutely great and is just highly detailed. And while I can remember some of these areas from way back when, I can definitely say that they have kept everything up to date so that no area feels old. And the sound and audio and voice acting is all good. I mean, there isn't much else to say. There's a decent track variety, so you don't feel like you're going to be listening to the same song over and over and over again, and all of the voice actors I've encountered in the game are extremely competent. Beyond that earlier lore blurb, I'm just going to try and stay out of spoiler territory as much as I can, which is going to mean that I'm not going to be talking about specific missions besides one, but we'll talk about that one later. The gameplay in this game can be boiled down to make a good loadout or use whatever you have and then kill everything on the map that is not a Tenno or a Tenno's companion, and then dip the fuck out. Granted, there's a few different types of murder missions. Firstly, there are the star chart missions, which is what you're going to be doing 90% of the time. These are going to be ground missions, as mentioned earlier, and can be broken up into a few different main groups: open world and not open world. The open world maps are free roams where you can just kind of wander around and do whatever you feel like, completing some side objectives and whatnot, whereas the not open world ones are much more confined, seeing you run through a procedurally generated map, which are made up of hallways and larger open combat areas that have a specific mission that you are trying to complete. This can be anywhere from defending a cryopod to cleansing the area of the enemy to my personal least favorite, sneak missions. There is stealth in the game and you are rewarded for using stealth, but my favorite kind of stealth game is the type that results in everybody being dead so there's nobody to raise the alarm. I just really hate spy missions. I am not a stealthy player. I mean, I either run Rhino Prime or Excalibur, and those are not stealth frames. Rhino is more along the lines of,
"You're up against the wall and I am the fucking wall!"
whereas Excalibur feels a little bit more point being that there is a lot of difference in the terrestrial missions, and while I could sit here for a hot minute and explain to you the different intricacies between the missions, as well as strategy in terms of resource acquisition, there's only so much eloquence that I can put into what effectively boils down to: 1. Do what Space Mom asks. 2. Manually introduce the local population into the ideas of force multiplier, overkill, and power scaling. And finally, be a loot goblin whenever you can. In short, your best course of action as a new player or a returning player is to complete your star map, which, if done correctly, should see you ending with a relatively high mastery rank and a ton of resources. More on that particular method later, but I've been talking about terrestrial missions. What about the extraterrestrial missions? Well, there's a lot of those too, and those are also into variety: Archwing and Railjack. Archwing missions fucking suck. There is just not much to really say about them. They feel tedious as shit, and anytime I see that I have to do an Archwing mission, I know that the next 15 to 20 minutes is going to be dull. Let me give you an example. One of the quest chains in this game is known as the Jortis Precept, and that was the mission chain that is probably the reason why I stopped playing. Not because it was hard, but because it was so fucking dog shit that it made me completely stop playing for multiple years. Most of the missions in this chain are very meh, and it all culminates into you fighting a massive infected juggernaut that dies relatively quickly if you have some good upgrades. However, after you kill the juggernaut, you are then thrown into one of the most boring boss fights I have ever played in my entire life. During this entire fight, you just kind of follow the wannabe keymind around and shoot at its engines for about 20 to 40 minutes, depending on if you have any upgrades to your Archwing, and that's it. Even the wiki just kind of shrugs and says, just shoot the engines till it dies. And I had to do that mission 3 times. Once to complete the mission, once to complete the star map for some reason, and then again to get footage for this video, so you're welcome. It doesn't even give anything good besides a 20 to 40% chance to get an Atlas frame part, but the fact that it's still here is just really annoying, and that mission, I'll just put it this way: every single Warframe player that I've talked to about the Jortis Precept agrees with me on the fact that it is indeed hot fucking garbage and is by far the worst mission chain in the entire game. All of that isn't to say that Archwings aren't fun to use. They are when utilized correctly, which brings us to Railjacks. These are your true strike crafts, equipped with multiple batteries that can be gunned by randos or friends alike, and the Railjack missions are just fucking awesome. You can pilot the ship, man the guns, or jump outside the ship in your Archwing and harass and board other ships, and protect your team's ships by repairing and fighting off invaders. With your own ship, you can upgrade it, crew it with NPCs to help keep the baddies out, and customize it to your heart's content. And all you'll need to do in order to acquire a Railjack is scavenge for parts with the assistance of your new Cephalon friend. This will then unlock the Imperium missions that will take place in space around each of the planets instead of actually on the planets. And while I haven't done as many Railjack missions as I have done Archwing or ground terrain missions, I do think that it is one of the best parts of Warframe and is some of the most fun you can have. And now we finally get to the Warframe roguelike area, known as the Duviri Paradox, or and this place looks absolutely amazing. The game takes away all of your crazy Tenno abilities, and you get to see what it's like to be a relatively normal dude in this universe. And oddly enough, the game takes on an almost Dark Souls-like combat system, where you actually have to dodge and block, rather than walking up like it's M41 and showing the Marines' malevolence what a war crime actually looks like. While there are a few different factions, you will be, for the most part, fighting three main ones. That is the Corpus, the Grineer, and the Infested. All of these factions have their roots in the backstory lore bit, but this is who they are now. Or at least what I can tell you and what I can remember, because I don't do research on this channel beyond the bare fucking minimum. And since the story of this game has changed a lot over the years, I might be saying some things in lore that are a bit wrong. The Grineer are a race of clones who worship their queens and seek to take over the Origin system and pretty much destroy everything. They're all clones, but they're kind of falling apart. So sadly, none of them can actually reproduce, despite having both female and male Grineer. So they all must be cloned in order to keep surviving, and are seeking out a way to stabilize their cloning template and wipe out anything that isn't Grineer. The Corpus are a group of technocratic corporatists that have formed into more of a massive cartel rather than an actual government. They worship the founder, who created the corporate cult that now worships greed as their god. They're effectively what most of humanity, or what can be called humanity, is outside of smaller pockets here and there. They are more machine than man, but they do have one of the best bangers of the entire game. And then there's the Infested. In simple terms, it's just the Flood. They just want to eat and destroy and kill everything. That's all we're going to go into on them. And I know what is in all of your minds right now: grinding. And I'll be completely honest, there's a little bit of grinding in this game, but a lot of the drops are frequent enough to where you will have some stock of resources on hand at any given time. If you need something more specific, the game has kindly let you know on which planets certain resources spawn, so you can beeline to the nearest mission that drops whatever you need and get started constructing on whatever you need to construct whenever you get back. The only exception to this is argon crystals. These can only be found in the void and will start deteriorating after 24 hours, but as far as I can tell, argon is the only resource with shelf life, and you'll need all of these resources to build things to increase your mastery rank. All the resources can be broken down into categories, that is construction material, everything from rubido, alloys, argon, orkin cells, etc. Credits, which can be seen as your power, as you will need it to build things, and maybe buy stuff from NPCs. Credits are relatively easily obtained. I've had multiple missions where I've just walked away with over 100,000 credits, so if you can imagine, it's very easily obtained. I guess Endo and Plat could also go under this category, but we'll get to those later. Finally, we got blueprints and relics, which are very useful. The blueprints are obviously used to build things. Relics have taken the role of void keys and can be cracked open during void missions to unlock prime blueprints. Everyone brings a relic to a void mission, and at the end you can either take what came out of your relic or opt to grab a copy of what somebody else got. And as mentioned earlier, plat or platinum is the de facto trade currency between players, as it has to be purchased with real money, but can also be traded with other tenno for pretty much anything. Blueprints for prime parts that you don't want, can't use, or don't actually have can easily be sold to others for plat. Also, do not buy weapons for plat. Why would you do that? You can get those blueprints pretty easily, and they cost less than 1.5 prime warframes. There is a whole market website that lists a lot of the transactions and going prices for things, so I'll make sure to put that in the description so they don't end up doing what I did and drop 200 plat on something that only costs 75. You can use the blueprints you buy or get via missions to make more stuff like weapons and warframes. There are 57 base warframes with 44 prime variants, some of which have been perma-vaulted like Excalibur Prime. All the base weapons and frames, to my knowledge, have never been vaulted, so you can obtain them at any time. Prime variants of those weapons and frames, however, do get vaulted, and many of them will go on for years without becoming obtainable again. So if you can imagine, the plat trading is only for prime stuff, either blueprints that have been vaulted or relics that contain vaulted blueprints. And if you can't tell, your arsenal is probably going to be your main resource sink. This is where you'll be accessing your frames, weapons, and pets, both biological and mechanical. The warframes each have a different specialty. If you're just starting, pick Excalibur. He is by far one of the best frames in the game, being your high-tier jack of all trades. Even with an arsenal full of prime warframes, I still main Excalibur. Fuck everything else. Excalibur is the best. Fucking quadruple S tier. I don't care what any of you fuckers say. If you disagree with me, drop your thesis paper on why I'm wrong in the comments and then fuck off. Anyway, if you can't tell, the prime variants are just better versions of the base variants. It's that simple. If you want to spend 100 hours min-maxing your Necros to make it barely better than a prime one, hey, no complaints here. That's not to say I don't think you're being but hey man, you do you. And since you have a set number of frames and weapon slots, I'd recommend you find a cool prime that you like and work up to that. Grinding for resources isn't too bad, and like I said, if you've been completing your star map, then you should have a decent amount of resources stocked up, only needing to do a mission or two to get the required argon, neurodes, and other quote-unquote rare drops. Occasionally, and during missions, you'll get mods, and these can be for weapons, frames, pets, etc. Pretty much, if you can equip it or use it, you can also mod it and make it much more powerful. The mods you get are limited to the upgrade capacity of that item. This can be upgraded via just leveling up the item, and guess what? Upgrade stack. So let's say you look over to my main loadout, specifically with my Soma Prime. As you can see, I have added the Cryo Rounds mod to let my weapon deal an additional 9 ice damage, since the weapon's base damage is 12, and the mod at its current level gives 75% of the total damage added on top as ice. So now we deal 21 damage per shot. If we were to say add a base damage upgrade mod that gives us 100% more damage, that 9 turns into an 18 and the base damage turns to 24, meaning that you can roughly triple your damage with just 2 upgrades. And this gets even more powerful with the more mods you add, and things can get pretty out of hand quickly. You can upgrade your mods using Endo. These can be found during missions or from breaking down duplicate mods. And please, for the love of God, do not sell your mods for credits. Like I said, you can run a mission or two and get tens, if not hundreds of thousands of credits in like an hour, or you can sell 181 mods for 56,000. Yeah, I think I'll take the 1200 Endo, thank you very much. Also, the Iatan stuff can be sold for Endo, but for the most part, its only use is being sold or used as decoration. But hey, they look nice. After you've reached a new mastery rank, you must then complete a challenge. You'll have a few tries at each attempt, but if you fail, each mastery attempt can only be done once every 24 hours. So try not to fuck those up. You can still grind stuff in the XP backlogs to where once you've completed it, you immediately can attempt mastery rank 10 in 24 hours. But at least you don't have to worry about losing games. And you can also practice a test before you do it for realsy. This is a fact I did not know until I got to mastery rank 10. Getting a new rank will give your account a ton of buffs like more inventory slots, base upgrade power on all of your weapons, meaning that all of your stuff also gets an upgrade. But most importantly, getting this number higher means you'll have access to better and better weapons that are locked off by mastery rank. I haven't even really scraped the surface of what's going on in this game, so far I've only really talked about the basic stuff and what to do simply around upgrading your character, but there is so much more going on in that everything can be customized, individualized, and this is a multiplayer game. So, how's the multiplayer? Pretty good. Missions are more fun with other people, and from what I can tell, the game does its best to have groups do missions rather than have you just go in solo. And for the most part, people are relatively nice, even in the markets. For the most part. Some people are willing to haggle on prices, give tips and ideas. New players are pretty common, and most people are relatively friendly with new and returning players. One of the biggest parts of multiplayer is PvP and the syndicates. I don't really have anywhere to talk about the syndicates, so I'm just gonna put them here. There's a bunch of different syndicates, but I'm only gonna be talking about the main 6. It should also be noted that each syndicate has an ally, a rival, and an enemy. So doing things for Syndicate A will get you some reputation with Syndicate B, their ally, decrease the standing with Syndicate C, their rival, and greatly decrease the standing with their enemy. Anyway, these syndicates are Steel Meridian, a breakaway group of Grineer that seek to undermine the Grineer Empire and assist and save human colonists. The Arbiters of Hexus are Orcan LARPing Tenno fanboys / supremacists that, despite not being Tenno themselves, these guys can be considered what would happen if a bunch of weebs who bought katanas and got really into the Bushido code actually got fit. They want to make the Tenno into the new gold caste and bring back the old days of the Orcan Empire. Cephalon Suda is an old mad Cephalon, which is effectively an extremely advanced AI that is obsessed with the Orcan and wants to collect all of their knowledge. She doesn't care how she gets it. Ask nicely, burn a child alive, she does not care. It should be noted that one of the neutral factions, Cephalon Samaris, absolutely hates Suda. The Perrin sequence, which I have been writing out as the porcine sequence since Google Docs decided to correct it to that, and I found it funny. They are a splinter group of the Corpus and seek to make money in peace while avoiding the tried and true method of good old capital generation. Special technique, Lockheed Martin. New Lakota are environmental fascists that seek to purify Earth back to its original state, creating a new green Earth for humanity to call home, despite the fact that that means absolutely genociding any and all life on it currently. The Red Veil is the faction that I have been a part of since day one and is by far the most atrocity committing faction out there. Y'all know the Imperium of Man? Well, there you fucking go. They seek to burn out the corruption of the mutant, the heretic, the Xeno. They are called cult-like and aggressive in their methodology by other factions, with humanity at the brink of extinction due to the blind hubris of Old Knight. They seek to burn out this corruption that has taken hold, and from the ashes birth forth a new human empire. To be honest, this doesn't really affect much in-game. You can get some cool stuff from each faction, and will occasionally get attacked by a kill team sent by the other factions who want you dead. And the PvP is very meh, it's not really my thing, but this game is a lot more fun in PvE, in my opinion. Warframe is a very fun game. There is like 10 years worth of stuff to do in this game, and after talking to some of the people who have hit the inevitable grind wall, to quote them, you don't get there until after a couple thousand hours of playing. The game is free to play, and all the cool stuff isn't really behind a paywall besides the prime things, but you can usually get those via grinding. Plat is a paid currency, but it's easy enough to even get the plat for free without spending $1. The game is very fun, it's very fast paced, and it's just a better version of Destiny. I give the game an 8 out of 10. There are some bugs, but that's to be expected. I'd say it's closer to a 9 than a 7. You should all really go check it out. I mean, it's free, so the only thing you're going to be wasting is time. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.